Good afternoon. It's Thursday, August the 22nd. I call this meeting of the Board of Library Trustees to order. Francesca, could you please take roll call and inform our public how they may contribute or participate?
Yes, Chair Joshi,
Present.
Trustee Joshi, thank you.
Go.
Trustee Moreau,
Here.
Trustee Petty,
Here.
Vice Chair Delormier.
Here.
And Chair Silvera.
Here.
For those of us not joining us here in the council chambers, information on participating in today's meeting and providing public comment, including remotely by Zoom or telephone, is on this meeting's agenda, which is online at isearchmonterey.org. We ask attendees to keep phones and devices muted, and we thank you for participating in your city government.
All right, our first item is to receive a presentation about the summer reading program. We're really excited about that. Thank you.
We're really excited to share. So my name is Bianca Navarrete Lopez, and I am the children's librarian.
Hi, and I'm Andrea. I'm the teen librarian.
And today we are going to show a PowerPoint presentation that summarizes our summer reading program for summer 2024.
Could you repeat your name? I was writing the date when you said who you were.
My name is Bianca,
Spell that.
Bianca.
Biang.
C.
T.
C, Bianca.
Like-
Oh, Bianca. Why did you say Bianca?
Okay, so first slide.
This is easier.
Um,
Actually.
oh dear. Technical difficulties. Is that- Okay.
While they're setting this up, I just want to make a comment because I made an error on page 5. If you're looking at your agenda report, where they had the game signups, they had number of adults or percent of adults, number of teens or percent of teens, and that should say number of kids or percent kids. So if you just see that on page 5 on the left-hand side, those are approximates that I have.
In that box, it's kids.
Kids. That's right. So just number or the total percent of signups.
So as you know, summer reading is a great way to fight the summer slump in school children, where if they do not keep up with their reading, there are studies that show that they actually lose their reading levels falling into the next school level. So we usually do summer reading as a way to combat that. But however, this year was also pretty interesting because the theme we had today was, or the theme we had for summer was Read, Renew, Repeat. We always get our theme from the organization called iReads. And this theme was interesting because it was environmental nature conservation. So it really encouraged us as a library to really think about how we can have our community connect and think about how we can be closer to nature or be better conservators of nature. And we tried to incorporate that into our design, the events we had, the prizes we had, and even our performers. So for example, we did collage making, some upcycling crafts, other prizes that were related to gardening or hiking. And just overall, I think it was better way to engage not only kids, but teens and adults as well. And that summer reading can be not only for reading, of course, but just ways to better engaged with our world and our community. Thank you, Andrea. Oh, no. Okay. So our reading log, we actually had our reading log designed by a local artist, Kenton Hoppus. He's pretty well known around here. If we're gonna show you the design that he made for our slides, but you might have seen some of his artwork around town before. But we liked his design because it's kind of upbeat and fun. We kept the reading logs all ages, the same as last year. We found that worked best for us. However, one major change we made this year is that we brought back Blackout Bingo. Last year, we had just decided to only give out one raffle ticket for the bingo, even if some people completed a Blackout Bingo. But we found that people didn't really like that. People love Blackout Bingo because now they can get up 12 raffle tickets. So, I mean, that's a pretty good deal. So it really showed off their whole hard work when they did a Blackout Bingo. But this time we also had a new incentive of having one unique raffle prize that was only for Blackout Bingo completionists. And this one was pretty fun because it was the Monopoly game that is the Monterey Bay Aquarium Edition. We'll also show you that too. But this is our reading log. As you can see, very bright, colorful, big bold letters. We also wanted to give out a special thanks to Richard Carr and Barbara Schilling. They made a very generous donation for us. And with that money, we were able to buy more prizes and more prize books for summer reading. So we were very thankful, and we wanted to acknowledge that in our reading log. Next slide. So this is a game board that we had. Same idea as every year. Every circle is about 30 minutes, and if you do every circle, then it comes out to about 12 hours. And the idea that we had for this one is hiking and animals. So as you can see, the little boy's like starting off his little hiking trail and then going around through the mountains, the forest, and the sea. And they're kind of funny little designs, but youthful, fun, playful. And then this was, we also still kept the super reader logs for the people who completed the original log. And if they still wanted to get more raffle tickets, because who doesn't want more raffle tickets, then they could do this as well. So for every 5 hours, they get another log, and they can do this as many times as they want. And then this was the Monopoly board game that we selected for our special Blackout Bingo prize. So the unique thing about this edition is that it's the only Monopoly game that is 100% plastic free. Hmm.
So I'm going to be going over our numbers. As you can see, I did include the numbers from previous year just to compare. So for this year, we had 1,100 people signed up, which is amazing. Again, compared to last year, there was 915 people. Now from that, there were 55% of them were children, 25 were adults, and then 20% teens. And again, as you can see, we had a huge increase of adults and teens who did participate. So that's such a huge win. And then we had the same amount of people who volunteered. We had 15 people. We had like a mix of adults and teens as well. And they completed a total of 326 volunteer hours. We did have lesser programs this year. We had 43 programs compared to last year where they had 50 programs. And that was due to limited staffing. Although we do still feel like we did pretty good. We had up to 850 attendees. And then we gave out about 90 prizes away and then over 425 prize books as well. Next slide, please. And then these are just a few images that we wanted to share. This was our sign up event where we had it in front of Colton Hall lawn. We had a performer group, it's like a musical group. They played soul music. They are called Soul for Kids. And we had several activities as well. One station was where we just laid out a lot of like Lego blocks. And then another station, we had collected a lot of cardboard boxes, and we had like a STEM activity where participants were able to carve out like boxes and put them together and build some type of like building. And then we also had another station where they were able to do face mask. Slide, please. Now, these were some of our program highlights. One of them being the Mario Kart tournament for teens. They absolutely loved it. We also had a jewelry making workshop that was for teens and adults. We had these kits where they were able to bring in broken jewelry, and they were able to use these kits that had tools that could help fix, maybe if they had like a broken pendant. We also had some jewelry they could make, and then we had the opportunity as well to use our laser cutter, where they were able to engrave messages on some jewelry that we had purchased on the side. And then we also had every Tuesdays, we had our Tuesday movie afternoons. Again, for all ages, we had like a variety of family-friendly movie selection, and where we also offered popcorn. I think that was one of the favorite things about the movie afternoons, smelling like popcorn. And then we did have the rock painting for all ages, seed mosaics for all ages, and we had the book recycling, like book art for adults. Next. Now, these are also other images, and these are images from our last summer reading party, and this was with Zune Zune Music Performance Group. They touched up on a lot of the important topics about water conservation and nature. It was really like hands-on, a lot of dancing. And then we also did have two separate sections where, again, we brought out the cardboard boxes because it's just a huge thing for everyone. And then we also created tie-dye bandanas. So the feedback. One of the first feedbacks that I did hear personally and from the volunteers as well is that many of the younger teens were looking for more like mangas. And we did have a few mangas, but I guess it wasn't much of a huge selection of them. So that's something that we will be keeping in mind for next year. The other feedback that we did receive was the book bingo options to be more accessible. So for example, one of the options were they had to like or comment on a social media, like on a social media post. And many of them did come to us and tell us that they don't have a social media. It's usually like more of the younger teens who would come and tell us like, oh, we don't have a social media. So we're thinking maybe we could have them a different option just for it to be a little bit more fair, although we do want the book bingo to be challenging, but we also do want to be aware that not everyone, especially if it's younger teens or children participating, we do want to make it accessible. And then one of the biggest main feedback were the cardboard boxes that they did enjoy doing it. And then again, especially for those kids who are usually, back home, just always on using technology. So I think it was a good way for them to test out like their STEM skills. And then lastly, the adults loved participating. I got a lot of comments, and I would overhear too, and the volunteers would tell me as well, is that many adults didn't know that they could participate. And that was one of the main things that I would encourage the volunteers to let them know, that adults are more than welcome. Even if you see that they're not walking around with their child, like go ahead and encourage them to join. And they were really excited about that. And then lastly, this is the end of our presentation. And again, I just wanted to say a huge thanks to our donors, Richard Card and Barbara Schilling. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Does anyone have Questions?
Well, I just had a comment. It was a beautiful presentation and it looks like it was a wonderful program.
Thank you.
It's so creative. You really took it and ran with it. And it's great. And I hope you guys had fun too.
We did.
Bob?
Yeah, to continue what Marcia was saying, we have a history. The bar was pretty high for you. We have a history of very, very successful summer reading programs, and you did nothing but continue that high level of success and raise the bar for whoever's going to be doing it next year. And having spent a number of summers as a day camp counselor while I was going to college to earn a little summer money, I have a special affection for summer activities like this. And I always wonder if there's some way, some creative way that was always beyond me, because I was just a counselor. I didn't have the authority, but to somehow continue whatever made this so successful for the participants in the summer, to somehow continue that feeling, that item, that type of activity. I don't know exactly what it was throughout the rest of the year, because this is really great. And when I was a professor, I taught statistics, so I'm always looking at the numbers, and I wanted to understand something in this chart where it says there were this year 1,100 signups and 850 program attendance. So that means, what, 250 people more than those who attended actually signed up for it. So they just didn't come or something, no shows, or maybe they went on vacation instead, or what accounts for that numerical difference there?
Yeah, I like to point out it's probably we're competing with the other libraries who are
Oh, yeah.
probably having summer
Sure.
reading. And I know, for example, like
Okay.
the last party that we had, there was a back to school bash the morning of. And a lot of, again, like I would tell the parents like, hey, we're having this event on this day. A lot of them did tell me that, oh no, I can't make it because we're going to be at the back to school bash.
So there were
So-
1,100 individual separate people who signed up.
Mhm.
And then the 850 number is out of that 1,100, obviously, and that's 850 different people from the 1,100.
Well-
Not 850 over the course of the whole summer, and you count 20 today and 50 the next day, like.
No, I think the 800 number is the cumulative count of people who attended the event.
Attendees. So yeah, okay.
So there's the people who signed up or picked up reading logs to participate. That's the first number.
Uh-huh.
And then the 800 number is the people who attended the actual events.
So
And some of those
attended-
people might have been repeats.
If they attended more than once, they'd be double
Right.
counted.
They'd be counted again. And then some people did the program and then they didn't come to any events, but they still had fun and participated.
Yeah, well, kudos to both of you and the rest of the staff who helped you.
Yeah, we really
Thank
could
you.
have done it without the rest of our stuff.
Can I add
Very
on
nice.
a couple of things on there too? Just, we had our end of summer, we actually combined also with another event, and I don't know if Kim, we added that into statistics or not, the one with recreation, but there was another event basically that we went to because we were going out to a different number of different events also and collaborating. So recreation contacted us and said, hey, we're having an end of summer party. Do you guys want to take part? And we said yes. And Kim went out there, and then we had a presence there too. And because it was cross promoted, that actually increases the number of people that are attending in these things. And that's something we've talked about, is how do you cross promote some of these things in the future so that the game boards go out to more people. Because this year we had actually put up I put it in the Monterey Bay Parent, I put the game board in the Monterey Bay Parent and also the Monterey Weekly, MC Weekly.
Yeah,
We
I saw it there.
We didn't really get much traction in terms of people returning those, only a couple, but it was just a try to see if we advertise in this thing, in the newspaper, will people use it for that version or not? So I think this kind of things about for us is how do we continue to try different things with the staff and do different events and say, okay, what works, what doesn't? And then also just being informed with the schools with different parties to say, what is your calendar? Because that's happening a lot of times in different events all throughout the city, is that we will have an event and then, oh, wait, Middlebury's having an event that night, or there's graduation night or something else. So I think that's for us where, as an organization, we're continuing to learn and continuing to kind of promote and go out to the different events, like at Del Monte Center. I know you guys were like at Del Monte Center and then reaching out and going through there. So just, yeah, I think that was, I think the staff did a fantastic job of going out and just trying to learn more. And I just highlight that, the number of attendees, it is like you're saying, a lot of times there's the large programs bring in a lot of unique attendees. When you have like a kickoff event at Colton Hall Lawn or things, and the kickoff party definitely had more people than the closing party. And so I think that that's something also we've got to kind of think about for future years, is like, what kind of events are people wanting to see, and what are people attending as all ages? Because as you see, there's more adults and more teens also coming and attending these programs.
So if one were to walk through the location where you were having one of the days of summer reading program, would the younger children be here and the teens be here and the adults be here? Or were they intermixed throughout the day? Or did you have like separate topics, separate reading levels, whatever, depending on?
I'd say we had a good mix of some events that were geared for individual age groups. And then I know for me, I did have some events like the rock painting or the seed mosaics that was all ages. And that was really nice because I did get to see a great mix of ages, like kids and their parents, or adults without kids, or even older adults. And it was just nice to just see everybody feeling welcomed and encouraged to just be together and do an arts and crafts event.
The reason I ask is because for the last 20 years, I've done a lot of work with seniors. And one of the big pushes, I'd say maybe in the last 6 to 8 years, has been the push to create intergenerational activities and situations, and even living environments, housing, where the older adults, the seniors, and the younger individuals in the world, not only the parents of the seniors, but the kids of the parents, were there interacting together. And that's turning out to be, as it evolves, very successful. So that's why I was wondering how you did it a lot of the time.
Yeah, totally. I think it just depended again on the event. Like if there was just certain events that would just appeal to only one age group, like the Mario Karts. I mean, maybe in the future we'll do an adults only Mario Kart, but for now we just settled that one for teens. But again, it is nice to think about programs or ideas that anyone could enjoy and anyone should be welcome to do.
Well, anytime there's an activity where a senior could just be helping the younger kid, in the absence maybe of the younger kid's parent being there, that might be an opportunity to put them together, and they're not doing exactly the same thing as if they were in competition, but assisting.
I would totally try to think about ideas for that.
Great. Yeah, good job.
Was the kitten activity part of the summer reading program, or was that separate? That was separate. Okay.
No, the kittens were in September. And then also the event that Brian was talking about with recreation was also in September. So those didn't make the cut, but they made the best of September list. I mean, not September, August. I don't even know what.
Thank you.
I mean, it wasn't in the summer reading program ran from June through July.
Okay.
And so the August events counted in August.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you again. We really appreciate.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we come to the consent agenda, which includes approval of minutes and informational reports. Does anyone want to move one of these items to the regular agenda so it can be discussed and?
Yeah, you quite rightly pointed out that last month, we should not have spent a lot of time talking about one of the consent agenda items without pulling it away. And so I would like to move number 3, the director activity report, out of the consent agenda, just because I have some questions for clarification,
Okay,
not to question in the sense of challenging anything, but just
Okay.
some,
thank you, Bob.
sure.
Is there, I need a vote to approve the consented agenda. Is there a motion? Second? Do we need a roll call? No.
On the Zoom meeting? Oh, yeah, you don't need a vote.
No vote? Okay.
Just ask people.
Oh. Does anyone disapprove? No. Then the motion passes. The consent agenda is removed with the exception of the Library and Museum Director's Activity Report, which we will consider after the public comments. Is that right? I don't know. I'm learning my way here. Okay. So now it's time for general public comments. Any item that's not on the agenda, or is there anyone who wishes to speak?
There are no public commenters, Chair Silvera.
Thank you. Public appearance item? Oh. No.
Now's the time to insert item 3.
Oh, insert item 3, yes. All right, we're going to receive the Library and Museum Director Activity Report from Brian and discuss in some way.
All right. Sure. All right. Yeah, we'll go over kind of some of the items on here. First off, we are open on Mondays
Mhm.
as of Monday, August 5th from 2 to 6 p.m. So we had just kind of a soft opening as we were trying to work out all of the kinks, making sure everything was there. There's a facility condition assessment, but if there's anything on here that's any questions on the reports, there's just kind of a couple updates on the pillar booth, the RFP, museums, but anything that was a question on the.
Yeah, the things I've highlighted in yellow here. Number 1, the opening on Mondays was August 5th. Maybe I just wasn't reading the paper closely enough or something, or the weekly, but I didn't see any big announcement. And I was wondering if, you said you wanted to kind of do it softly to make sure everything was working well. And assuming as the Mondays have gone through the month, you've worked out any kinks. I was wondering if maybe a belated grand opening, calling it something like that, would be a good idea to inform the public. And, it wouldn't cost that much money, I don't think, to have a belated grand opening or bookmark given to everybody that comes in that day. On that whatever Monday, and of course you'd have it on a Monday, but I just thought that was great. You use the phrase that we're part of a larger citywide report on facilities when you're talking about public works and everything. Could you very briefly inform us, or me in particular, what a citywide report on facilities is, of which we are a part?
Yeah, so been working with public works staff, and they've been going through all of the staffed buildings to go through every so often you do a facility condition analysis report. I think our last one for the city was 2007, if I'm not mistaken. The facility condition analysis will be when they go through life cycles of buildings. So generally when you go through, you say, your HVAC system should be updated every 20 years. Your roofing should be updated every 15 or 20 years. Like same way with like your house, like you might put in there how often somebody says a refrigerator or certain appliances and different things are on there, their life cycles. And then they go through and they take photos of all of your critical systems in there, whether that's getting underneath your boiler, what is the status of the boiler room, the roofing, the gutters, all of those kind of systems and life cycles. So that's been something that the city has been doing to update the reports. So we went through, Colton Hall, the library, and I will say in the library, one of the major things is that, the attic is because of how the building was designed, that there's not good, and we don't have the HVAC units on the roof, they're inside the ceiling. And so that makes it great for aesthetics. So you don't see like what you would call a package unit on the roof or something like, but you can't really access it for working on it. And so the thing is 40 years old, full of dust, and we need to get some work on those kind of things.
Okay. I'll combine these then into one. Could you just give us some quick updates on the progress of the vending lockers and the progress on RFPs for EDIs? Because I've mentioned EDIs
Sure.
many, many times over the years. It's a space that's sitting there usable or should be used. And I'm glad to see that at least we're at the time you created this report, we were getting or asking for RFP. So could you give us just a quick update on those two?
Sure. So the vending lockers, I went back for a requote because the prior bid came in and they did not include tax and installation in their bid. And so when we're going into contract, we realized their bid was incomplete, and basically was not correct. So I rebid the items and got back from the other vendors to get the numbers. So those are sitting with what we call our ISD or IT department, because those are IT equipment. The IT department will work on the contracts with us. So they've asked for it. So I've sent them the quotes we have for those locker sites. We've had Johnson Electric, which is the company that does our electrical and our network cabling, has visited both sites to work on getting power and cabling, data cabling over there for both sites. And then once we get into contract, we'll work on getting the concrete pad installed at Montecito Park. But we're waiting right now for our ISD to finalize on the safety. Really, what they're looking at is, do we need another server? Is this cloud-based? Like, what is the software on there, along with the cost? So we've given all the specs to the vendors that we need, and I'm just waiting for the IT department to basically give us the go-ahead to go. And once we do that, we'll have a timeline. And we do have staff available to work on it once we get it installed. And then Edda's Cafe, we've posted that RFP. I was working on that with Francesca, and she has that posted up on what we call OpenGov. OpenGov is a website that the city uses for procurement portal, and anybody sign up for specific types of vending, types of contracts, is notified of that contract up there. And so this contract also, at the same time, the city sports center also has a RFP listed, a pretty similar RFP for the sports center, that little kind of vending cafe, if you've been in the sports center in the very back, or concession stand, I should say. It's more of a concession stand. So we're waiting for more. It's on the timeline is through basically September currently on the OpenGov platform. And if it doesn't, if we don't get valid bids, I think we will renew it and extend it. And then if it does not, I would like to come back to the board to see what other options are there, because I don't see it as a site that our library staff can manage ourselves. And I want to make sure that we get active use out of that more than just a couple times a year. That was an NCIP project that cost $300,000+, and that we want to get some active use. So my thought is, if it were not get open bids, eventually we may want to come back and look at, can we rent this space out and make it a revenue generator by saying after hours use or cafe, or kitchen use for people using a program. So that would be an alternate use of using the space.
Thanks. I don't think, at least I haven't heard that the name of the place has been changed ever since day one when Edda's family or, relatives donated a big amount. I think it was around $10,000 to get the thing going or to allow it to happen. It was been called Edda's Eats. And I think cafe might be misleading to some people because when I hear the word that's a cafe, I picture some level of sit down and eat and maybe be served. But if it's Edda's Eats, you go there and you get something to eat. And, if we have picnic tables or whatever out in the patio, that's good. But am I correct? It hasn't been changed from Edda's Eats to Edda's Cafe.
I think I don't know if there's there's no formal signage or anything that's on there. I don't know if there's anything that has a city naming policy either that would give you long-term naming rights on a city or library property either. So that would be something I'd want to look into more with legal counsel, but I can take.
Well, I know when it was opened, it was said, grand opening of Edda's Eats, and it's been called Edda's Eats in at least all of the stuff that's come through the board, I believe. And Marsh has been on the board second to me in length, and you're agreeing with that, right? So,
But that was 2017.
It's a little more unique too to say Edda's Eats rather than something cafe. But and lastly, before I'll let you continue, the very last item says that later this month, I assume that means August, there will be an exhibition of Pat Hathaway's photos in Colton Hall. Has that started yet? And if not, do you know when?
Yeah, so actually, they're putting up, there's panels that are actually installed.
Uh-huh.
The opening is going to be August 29th.
Oh, okay.
I believe is it 5 or 5:30, 5 p.m., 5 to 7 p.m., August 29th. And I believe you might see an article next week in the Weekly too about it, but there's a work with Monterey County Historical Society, and the photos are based off of the Pat Hathaway collection, but they're Monterey themed photos from the Pat Hathaway.
That's a week
collection.
from today.
Yeah. So we just got the information they just really finalized it. So we haven't even gotten the flyer out, but we've just got it on the calendar.
Okay. Colton Hall is open roughly the same hours as the library.
No, Colton Hall is open right now, Thursday through Sunday, 10 to 4. And then we also do private tours for different schools and
So
groups.
this is a special event at 5 o'clock because normally they'd be closed before that on a Thursday.
Yes. Yeah. And so this is actually one of our museum attendants. She's a retired museum manager for the city, Susan Glusmeyer. She's been working on handling the Pat Hathaway collection for the Monterey County Historical Society.
Yeah.
So this was actually more of Susan's project with Monterey County Historical Society. And it's a community foundation for Monterey County grant that they got for processing that. And they had to display it at some place. So Colton Hall is where we're displaying it.
Oh, that's nice. Great. Well, and thank you, everybody, for extending our discussion of this report, because I think there are a lot of interesting things going on, and I wanted a little more.
Yeah.
I wanted to feel less clueless.
I have a comment about the updates. Every year we get this unplanned but predictable power outage, and having only those 2 charging stations where everybody wants to charge their phones becomes a limitation. It'd be good to have more of them distributed around. Not,
You mean, those.
looking over your shoulder to say, are you done yet?
I think what the library needs to have also, because what I will mention is that, the building needs electrical upgrades. If you look at it, there are we still have screw-in fuses on the second floor. We have electrical panels that have been recalled throughout the building that are 30, 40 years old. These are panels that, it's a project in terms of if the library is consistently seen for that, which I do think it's a great use during the power outage for us to be there. The load of those circuit breakers has to handle that. And so number one, we have to go through, I think what we need to make sure is we go through with the city and do an amperage assessment, because you go through and you say, what's the load off of these circuits? Because we were using every single outlet, but at the time you may exceed that, and so what we did last year is we went And I worked with the county operation
Mhm.
OES,
Yeah.
and we bought, I think they bought like 30 or 40 surge protectors. And we put all of those at every outlet we could, but that's where you start ending up with overloading. Amperage on your phone is pretty low, but if you start having every single outlet is loaded with everything on there, we just want to make sure that the building is safe. And I think it's a good reason, in my mind, why we upgrade the electrical
Mhm.
and work on HVAC, electrical, a lot of these things for building safety and security for these reasons. But I think it's great. If the load can handle it, I like the idea, because yes, even during the day, I'll say people are using
Mhm.
device chargers all the time. And some places have, if you go similar to like what airport lockers have, or different places where you can get a kind of a locker system where you can put it in there, charge it, leave it for a bit and come back. So there are other options that are out there too.
So when the Public Works report is issued, what happens then? Does that mean that there's some action taken on our HVAC or anything?
No, I think because there has to be funding allocated with that. That's where I will say, when I looked back, when I joined here, when I was looking at the Group 4 report, and it was looking at the Group 4 briefly mentioned the facility, what they call an FCA, Facility Condition Analysis Report from 2007. And so with that, you look at, okay, typically what you would do, in my opinion at least, is that you would look at, okay, this is the last report in 2007. This is a report from 2024. 2007 stated this. What has been done by the year 2024? Has railing been installed? Have you redone the doors? Have you redone the roof? What has been done and at what time? And then you redo the timeline. And then typically some reports will say this is the cost analysis, because they might have like an overall cost analysis that says you have X hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in repairs needed. So it's really a number that will give you an assessment for your building to say, this is what you need for your building. And this is a rough estimate of what they call like an REM, rough estimate of magnitude or whatever for your construction cost.
But the money would come from the city, from
City or
NCIP?
NCIP or grant funding, wherever it would be, but it wouldn't be library funding ourselves unless we were to get like a grant and something on that.
I wanted to circle back to Etta's about the naming rights or whatever. If we have an outside nonprofit or business, it would stand to reason that they would want to have the right to name it or append, add something to Etta's. And is that provided for, or?
That's noted that we would discuss that as part of the contract.
Okay, so it is actually in the.
Yeah, I believe, did we, I don't remember if it was something, but it was something that we brought up in terms of like when we were discussing of like, what if somebody comes in here and says, no, I want to call it this.
Right.
And we don't
neither-
have
okay,
it.
So neither party's going to be blindsided by that when it does, because it will come up.
Right, exactly. It will come up on there. And I think that's what different libraries have seen, because we looked at a number of different libraries all throughout the state in terms of what their bids look like. And there are different systems for different ways of different libraries, but a lot of them, they do have that contracted and people put it in there. But naming rights are something that's can be kind of difficult, as you know, from
Right.
in the past. So it's
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add a couple of two quick questions off of Bob's questions. One is, how has the attendance been on Mondays? Is it starting to pick up? Are those kids starting to come from school?
yeah, I think it was the first day, I think I was 92 or so around,
Wow.
which was without any advertisement. And it was interesting seeing the desk because there are people that generally just walk up on Mondays and try to open the door. And some people came in and they were getting reference questions asked. And it was great because they're like, wait, you guys are normally not open? And they just didn't know. These were people that just were walking through. And I think it's getting into like the 200s or so right now. I mean, that's for a 4-hour shift When typically right now we're doing, we are doing 10 to 6 and getting, roughly about 500 or so a day. So it's getting up there, and actually, yeah, and I will say our city manager came by Monday afternoon on around 3:30 or so, just to see how it was going. So that was nice to see. He was just like walking around and seeing and saw, like, the students were coming in, and I asked Andrea to share with the high school, with the school contacts as well over there. So the school knew, because that's one of the focuses that we talked about earlier, is that we wanted to make sure that the students knew. And so we set that goal for opening first week of the first Monday of August, to reach the students that the first time they came to school in August, that the library would be open. And so they wouldn't think, if they went there the first day of August, their first school day, and it was closed, oh wait, it's usually closed. We want it to be open at that time.
Right. So I don't know. I think the easiest thing is just to put a sign in the library. Maybe you have one already saying we're now open Mondays.
It's open on the corner where we have the marquee.
Ah.
Now open, was it open Mondays, woohoo, or something. And as
Yeah. And
uh,
the hours are updated.
yeah, and the hours are updated on the doors. Lucia did that for us with the film.
The big sign.
The big signs have been taken down.
Oh,
So we had those, the big sign taken down just because that said open Tuesday through Saturday, right? So we had that taken down. I was planning on today, after the meeting, I have to go write my newsletter. And part of my newsletter was going to be talking about the library hours, and then also reaching out at some point on doing like a press release with that too, with the city manager's office. But I think, yeah, we've gotten past we got some of these things of like getting the Wi-Fi fixed and we want to make sure, especially in the first day, when our computers work on timers and our Wi-Fi works on a timer and our HVAC works on a timer. And so all of these things, like, you want to make sure that all of your systems are running correctly before you really announce it. Because I would hate to, because, like, for example, when we opened for during the storms, and we said we're open at 10 a.m. and then one of the charging cables was up at Ryan Ranch, and so we had to come back and get that charged up and get that set up. So it was like about an hour and a half or two until we got power, but people were inside the library. People were there and they're having a good time. But I was saying, like, it took a little bit of time for that to do it. So you want to make sure everything works before you start.
And one last quick question is, who's going to pay for the lockers? Does that come out of the library's budget, or is that?
So the lockers are actually, that's general fund. Those are general fund items, and
General fund library budget.
library general fund budget. Yeah. So that was appointed by the city. I worked with the city manager.
So they put that into your budget.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that I worked with them to put in funding directly for that
So
purpose.
it in so you could do it.
Yeah.
You didn't have to divert it from someplace.
No, it's a line item, which is basically under like a special equipment and furnishing. So it's a special item for that.
Thanks.
I heard you mention pouring a pad at Montecito Park. Is that the parks or is that the library for the locker to stand on? Because that'll be an extra expense.
So that will be, I got the quote from Public Works, and I mean, it still would fit under the scope of what we needed, because the work will actually be done by Public Works staff. So it's going to be basically cost of material
Package.
and it's actually going to be in front of the firehouse. So where Montecito Park is right there, and you've got the
Right.
fire station right next to it. And so right at the front, there's a tree, there's a little free library right there, as you know, the little free library right there. So it's going to be perpendicular to that, where that fence line
Okay.
is, where that there's a short
Between
chain
the
link
park.
fence. Yes.
And
And they're going to pour up a pad, because then otherwise, if we do it on the sidewalk, then we have to do an easement permit for blocking the sidewalk. And I didn't want to deal with that kind of thing. So that's why it'd be perpendicular and not deal with all of the irrigation that's done on the new gardening on the corner of the fire station. So I talked with the fire station, we talked with the recreation department and Public Works, just to make sure that the site would work for all the parties.
okay.
The Weekly's been very supportive over many years of the library. I wonder if they would put a little splash in one of their pages that just says, guess who's open on Mondays? Monterey Library. I don't want to say 4 to 6,
2 to 6.
2 to 6. And, just a little, like a balloon bursting or something, just a little splash. I wonder if they would consider.
They give us a great rate on advertisements. I'll say that.
Yeah,
It's not free.
Pay for it. Huh?
Yeah.
It's not free, but it is, they give us a good rate. So something we can think of.
Old Monterey Business Association is great about throwing
True.
things into their e-calendar.
Mhm.
And they're always happy to do that. So they should put it in a couple of issues.
Are there any public comments on the director's report? No. Thank you, Brian. It sounds like we should make this part of the regular agenda instead of the consent agenda on a regular basis. Thank you. All right, agenda item 5, review timeline and process for annual evaluation of library director.
Oh, did we skip the statistical thing?
They were the
voted in when we
consent
did the
agenda.
rest
We
of the
already
consent.
agreed to them.
Oh,
Do you want to go back to it?
well, I saw that informational reports in item number 4.
Right,
That's
but
part of
that was
consent.
part of the consent agenda.
Okay.
Is there something?
I'm just curious about what caused this big drop in wireless usage minutes.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Huge drop.
Trustee Joshi, yeah. And that's something you have to investigate. What I will say is that we've gone to a new AP. We have the Juniper access points rather than Cisco.
Uh-huh.
And so I am not sure how the tracking is working because I just talked with our IT last week and I said, I told them, I said, we have to pull these reports monthly, wherein previously we pulled everything through Spot, through our internally, we were doing everything on that side. And now we're on a new system. So I don't know the difference on this in terms of what they're doing, but it does seem like, because if you'll notice, there's slightly less wireless sessions, right?
Yeah.
But it's far less in number of minutes, which doesn't make sense to me. I will say, like, is the wireless session right now does work slightly different, and we actually just upgraded, or I would call it upgraded. We just changed how your wireless access works in the library right now, where it's a very simple. You just click accept and you get on, and you don't have to deal with Spot because that was not working well for us. But now it actually self-authenticates. So after 90 minutes, if you're still on, it will auto renew you. Where before with Spot, if you're there for 2 hours, it would log you off. So if you were in the middle of a meeting or a session, it would log you off at that time. This is an auto renewal kind of proxy option so that your session will like if you're in like a 3-hour call, it'll automatically renew you and actively keep you on the session. So those are kind of the technical side. We have to figure that out with our IT department, how they're tracking and reporting and what numbers they're actually using for us. And we'll find that out hopefully in the next meeting and amend this if we need it.
It was a curiosity more than anything else.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the director evaluation, we've received materials from everyone, input from everyone involved, and that's been distributed to the trustees. We just now need to really formalize the timeline so that we can make sure as many of us as possible, hopefully everyone, can attend these closed session meetings. And Bob told me that he was not available on the afternoon of the 12th. Is there anyone else that has an issue with the 12th? Could it be in the morning? Could we get into the library before the library is open, for example? Okay. So on the 12th in the morning will be the trustees session, closed session. And will we have to have something beforehand, Francesca? Will we have to have some public, something? Okay, all right. Okay, so Francesca will book us hopefully for the community room. Is 9 all right with
Yeah,
everyone?
really,
9
I
is
have
good.
something at 10:30, which I will
Oh,
cancel, but,
oops.
I will cancel it, but it's okay, but,
That's a bit early, but
at 9 would be great, because maybe I
Okay.
can make a little bit of money.
Let's try 9 and we will try to be speedy. I'm sorry? Okay, we could now, how would we do that? I mean, I just don't know about the BCC and the,
The what?
well, if I send you out a notice saying, what days can you meet? Does that have to be BCC? Can I? Just, is
maybe
that
we should try
considered
to-
library
Maybe
business?
we should try to do it here.
Yeah, we just also, how about
Okay.
Tuesday, the 13th? That's the very next day,
Friday the 13th.
Wait. Friday the
or
13th.
Tuesday,
Or-
oh, yes, I'm
Wednesday-
sorry.
Or Wednesday, the 11th in the morning.
Okay, okay,
So
okay.
In what time of the day? So Wednesday,
So
No.
I think Thursday works. If it works for everyone else, I'll make it work for me. That's fine. Thursday morning, 9 to.
9 to
9 to noon, 9 to
Hopefully
1, whatever
end
we
at
need.
noon.
if we start at 9, I bet we could say 9 to 11.
Okay,
And block out the extra hour just in case.
And yeah, I mean, and if we're not stepping on somebody else's toes, if we ran past 11, so what? But like I say, if there's more flexibility in everybody's schedule, I'm totally free all day long, Friday the 13th or Wednesday the 11th.
but the room is not
Do-
available.
Just in the afternoon.
Yeah, do we need the community room necessarily, or?
Oh, we could do it. No, I mean, there's only 5 of us, right? So we could do it in the solarium.
All right,
So Wednesday morning is good. Friday morning, not for me, but Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning's good for me.
this is Wednesday, the 11th.
Or Friday afternoon works for me. But Wednesday morning, Wednesday morning?
That would
Just
be
a
my
second, let me,
preference.
I'm sorry, I turned my phone totally off. Okay.
so again, it's 11th.
The 11th.
Yeah, how are you on Wednesday, the 11th?
I'm fine and all, and that entire week is okay for me.
Wednesday,
Weekdays.
the 11th, morning
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Solarium.
in the solarium. That's okay.
Wednesday?
With everybody, Wednesday, 9 o'clock.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you all for,
And Mark,
9
did you have something later in the morning that we would
And
need?
now I have something at 1,
Oh, okay.
So 9 to 1,
or 9 to noon
9 to.
9 to noon.
9 to noon, 9.
in the
to
solarium.
45.
We can do that. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you all.
Mhm.
Okay,
And,
so that's Wednesday,
The 11th.
9/11. Correct?
Yes.
We said 9 or 9:30, did we say?
9
to-
9/11, 9 to 11.
Oh,
How's that?
oh my
Miracle.
goodness, it is 9/11.
Okay,
9 to 11.
but really till 12 in case.
Yeah,
All right.
I think it's good to say 9 to 11, just so that we have that as a working time limit.
And as far as the session with Brian, obviously we need Brian to be available.
We had said the 19th.
We had said the 19th.
Doesn't matter.
Again, I believe the community room is booked, but it's the solar, well,
is that in the morning as well, 9 a.m.? Yes.
So,
The 19th, we were going to do 4 in the afternoon, right?
right, we were, that's what,
Okay.
that's what I figured. I have something at 6 that day, so I can only go till about 5:30.
what
Well-
is everybody?
Well, this is a closed session with Brian and it's, I mean, we could do that in the solarium too, I believe, and that rather than here.
Can you fit 6 people in this solarium?
Yeah.
So we have to do some public comments. But is that okay to do that in the solarium? I mean,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, I see. We could go to the community room for a minute and then whatever. Oh, okay. I got it. I got it.
Okay, so we're talking Thursday, the 19th,
Yeah.
and we're saying 4, or we're saying
Four.
other time.
4 to 5:30.
Brian, is that
Sure, works for me.
everyone? All right.
So the 19th is late afternoon
Yes.
4 o'clock.
or 4
Four-
o'clock? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And that works out for the solarium, or what's the Orca room? Oh, that's HR's.
Yeah, let's do it at the library if we have a room, either one of the.
We like the library.
Yes, we do. Books. Okay.
4.
Can we do that?
An hour and a half is gonna be enough?
Yeah.
Because I can't.
Well, I
do
can
earlier.
push a little.
Well, we could start a little earlier. I mean,
I can't
it's,
get there earlier than 4.
oh, okay.
Yeah, 4 sound is.
Four,
does
okay.
work?
Four's good.
Because last year I was totally away and could not go to that session at all, but if we can make it work, we can make it work, and yeah.
Okay.
All right, great.
So
Sounds
you
good.
don't have a meeting to conflict with 4 o'clock on the 19th, right,
No.
Brian? So you're good.
I put it in my calendar right now.
Okay.
That was amazingly easy.
And the deadline for getting our stuff back to you, Janie.
Is the third.
Yeah,
day
and
after
that still gives you enough
Thursday.
time, even though we've moved the other meeting up a day.
Yeah, I think so.
Just moved it by 1 day.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure that, you know.
Okay.
We weren't,
Yeah, we will do it.
Mhm.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any?
Yeah, when you
any
send
other
out the message,
questions?
put the calendars with it.
I'm sorry?
When you send out the message to everybody,
Oh, okay,
put the calendar in it too.
okay.
Yeah, I
I
can.
will do that. Yep. All right. So, let's see what else. Mhm. Oh, all right. We're about to receive the update on strategic plan process and next steps. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, so as we earlier meeting, we discussed kind of the strategic plan and went back to the staff to see the capacity and had a small work group that worked together on kind of creating we had a timeline and activities and worked on the survey, which was on Have Your Say Monterey and in both English and in Spanish, and had a number of community conversations going out to, Monterey Museum of Art's block party, the farmers markets over at Del Monte Center, Old Town, and just getting more input from the community about what their hopes and aspirations are, what they liked about the library, and kind of different things on there. And due to several reasons, I think, during the summer, we had a decreased staff and an increased workload that happens during the staff. I said, we're still in information gathering mode. Let's pause through the summer and return back. And then I met with Chair Silvera and our trustee Moreau, and we talked more about strategic plan and bringing it back here. And we talked about it at the past meeting as well. And so we're still in kind of an information gathering mode. And I believe this has been largely staff led. I've been taught that it should be something that the staff should be taking the lead on this and really guiding the process throughout. But also to get input from the board on this as well. And I think having the staff getting the primary lead on this, really because they are on the ground and working with our community and our different groups, is ideal. But I put on here also, we had our staff development day where we discussed our internal values. And I think we had some great discussions also about where do we live and how do we, what do we aspire to be as a group? And so the thought that I have is that I think we should work with, possibly get a consultant to just kind of keep us on track going on there, to help kind of keep us on track, and also potentially work with a trustee or work with a session or wherever, kind of get some input on what we would like to see in here. And I'd lean on staff here as well, Francesca and Kim, who are here in chambers as well. If you have anything that you'd like to add about that, or anything you'd like to talk about the process or moving forward.
I don't have anything to add.
But I do want to thank all the staff for their work on all of the different aspects that we've been doing and reaching out. I will say also that surveys, like the city, we send out a lot of surveys and advertise, and surveys, getting less and less survey responses as a city, because people are getting so many surveys on rental assistance and they're getting surveys on general plan. And there's a lot that are going through that. For us, I really think that, and being at a lot of those farmers market nights or being at those events are just such a much more captive audience. And you're also getting an audience that are not always at the library, which is a great way to connect with people and about seeing, like, why don't you have a library card? You know, what would you like to see? Oh, we do actually offer that, you know, and it's a great way of conversation of having that on there. And so I would say that those pieces, and I appreciate everyone that took part in that, because those were really valued additions. And I appreciate the farmers markets for allowing us to be there, you know, in those sites, to be on those programs. Yeah, Francesca, any additional thoughts or no? Any thoughts? Just thoughts from the
Andres was on that small committee, wasn't
Yes.
he? And so is someone else going to?
I think, you know, we also had, I think right now the group, just from my perspective, is librarian heavy. It's very much like the librarians, and I think we're getting more classifications and potentially like part-time seasonal, getting more. We had a couple that were on there, like Ilana, who works on the communications, but I think getting a varied group on there would also be helpful on there. Sarah's was also on the group as well.
Yes, are you taking questions? I was just thinking that maybe it would be useful to have a point person from the board that would be a sort of interface between strategic planning, you know, who you could call on or could come to you, you know, if you have a meeting just to come and sit and listen. And I don't know, does that make sense? I'm not volunteering.
The
No.
person would be expected to do what?
Well, I don't know. That's what I thought.
You said meet with,
I would
and
throw out for the strategic planning process. It
whenever,
would be a sort of interface.
like whenever somebody representing the board was desired to be in on a discussion, this person would be the one they would check.
Right.
Okay,
I-
all right.
Something like that. Or, you know, if you're having a session with a listening session or somebody from the board, just come and listen so that we get a sense of, just like you're getting a sense of what people want, the board, it would sort of help us line up between what we're thinking and what you're thinking.
You know, we don't want to be the elephant in the room, but we also want to be in the room in some way. And
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
something I'm throwing out there. I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying it's a thought.
Well, that would be consistent with the recommendation in the first, you know, the first big paragraph of this report here. Where it says, actually, the director recommends that the board appoint a member to serve on the committee. Well, maybe not serve on the committee, but be this liaison
Because it was your idea, not mine.
Well, it's consistent. I think we're just having like a liaison. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to, like, as you said, it's a,
Mhm.
You said a point.
well, yeah, but it's depending, not always the best at words there, but I'll just say that, having a person so that the board knows who is the point person. And when we come back to doing updates if we come back to a board meeting, that somebody on the board is able to contribute as well into that discussion. And that's where I thought there might be value on that. After talking with Trustee Silvera and after talking to Trustee Moreau, that was the thought was having.
We had also mentioned when talking to Brian that we've been through a lot of strategic plans in our various careers and lives, and Marcia knows someone who would help facilitate.
Well,
perhaps.
we know somebody facilitated our strategic plan update. I think, Bob, you're the only one that was there, but and it was just a one afternoon exercise. It wasn't a whole
Oh,
strategic
okay.
thing. So I know that you were talking about some sort of consultant or something. I guess we would have to look at a scope and kind of get a sense of what that would look like if we need that. And now, I don't know, Bob, you have another idea, but I mean.
Well, I'm just not convinced that it's not something we should totally ignore, but I'm just not convinced there's enough necessity to hire an outside person to come in. I mean, we may find that there is, but I don't know that we know that
Well,
firmly enough at this point.
I'm not sure that our director has the bandwidth to lead, to do strategic planning as well as everything else that he's doing. That's what and running museums and everything else. To add strategic planning to that plate, I'm asking you.
Well, I think on my side, and I know that, and actually Francesca worked quite a bit on a lot of the calendar and working on the framework of what we were going to do with that on the strategic plan from the beginning. And we met a lot and on it. And I said at that point, personally, I don't want to be the one leading all of the discussions. Part of the discussions, yes. But what I feel like is that if I'm leading that discussion or leading the calendar, leading this point, at a certain point, it becomes very top-down directed. And that's where I felt like somebody on the outside. And then if there are times where we're not meeting a goal, the facilitator for me is like helping to facilitate the discussions. Because I felt like, when we talk staff values at our staff workshop, I felt that the person that was outside that helped us facilitate the discussion did an excellent job of facilitating the discussion, but not leaning in their personal viewpoints on what it was. So it was really just keeping all of these groups individual, keeping the groups together so people can discuss things together and then getting it in. And I can say on the outside, I'll contribute, but I'm not going to be just the main. And I do see value as myself as the, as the head, as the person, as the director of having that voice and having that veto or going through and saying this. But at the same time, I want to give staff that ability to say, we would like to see this. We would like to discuss this. We would want to do that. And that's where, I guess, for me, it's a little bit of a push and a pull, but then having somebody that may be really excellent as being the person that can help us, because all of us, everyone has a number of assignments. We're all, working on things just to really serve the city and serve our residents. And we're all trying to do our best, here for the community. And I find like having somebody else that can out there and then just really be that point. And it doesn't have to be a huge process either. I don't think it has to be like a really lengthy one, or having somebody that says, I have an agenda. This is what I'd like to see. I think for us to really talk and meet with a couple people, see what works, what doesn't for the staff, come back and see what the process is going to be, But I'm open. I'm just more flexible, I think, than anything for the process.
Since it's your suggestion, am I correct in assuming that the outside person you're talking about would be somebody who has some familiarity with the world of libraries, not just familiar with running a meeting, but have some knowledge of libraries as a type of organization compared to running a restaurant or something.
I think it's a bonus if you understand government and you understand nonprofits, because there's a lot of nuances on there, but even academic libraries are far different than public libraries.
Yeah.
And
Well.
so, there's different things. And as you said, like a restaurant, and like they're going to come in with a different thing. So I think it's helpful for somebody that has worked with nonprofits or groups that can work with me and the team, and then really come up with a plan and help facilitate, like, this might work well. So it doesn't have to be somebody that's worked, in my mind, it doesn't have to be somebody that's worked with libraries. It's a bonus. And sometimes it's actually good to get feedback from a person that's not been fully in a library.
I'm wondering, does the city use facilitators sometime for this? I mean, they may have a list of people or something that they've ever used as other agencies, something.
Kind of like a speakers bureau, except it's
I haven't been here long enough. I don't know, Kim. I mean, they use a number of speakers, like for when we had like our Onda Academy, and they'll have people that they've worked with for.
Not facilitators necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know. They have a legal kind of representation that they use for a lot of programs and things. And I think that would be just too far. I think that would just be too formal, in my opinion, for what we would want on here. My thought is possibly working with, there's a community foundation has a list of nonprofit and executive leaders and consultants that work with leaders on kind of development and strategic plans. And there's a number of groups that are out there. And I've had conversations with MOBAC, which is the Monterey Bay Area Library Consortium, talking with different libraries. What did you do? How did you do this? And I've reached out to different people out there to see what their plans have been.
Yes, so maybe outlining some sort of scope of work that this person would need to do so that you'd ultimately have the conversation and figure out cost and how much work they would do, or what might be a useful next step to just sort of lay out the plan for an RFP kind of.
Yeah, but I think it's I do think we could, and it's not set in stone. I think we need this, but I think we will come back, but I do think it's getting some, as the board has mentioned, that I think they want to, be involved through the process. I think having somebody, but doing it so that we're not having like a quorum, that was my concern, is like having different people rotate in and out, and then it becomes like a, Brown Act issue. Like, I'd prefer to have somebody on there. If we're doing this and the board wants to contribute, that we do that. We come back, look at it, review back. And like I said, I'm open to it. I think we come back, work with the staff on what's going to be best for them. I like hearing from them what their bandwidth and capacity. And since we stopped, we've actually had a new bookmobile coordinator. We have a new library assistant that's on there. We have different people helping out with fund development, like Julia's helping out with fund development and doing programs and working on the desk. There's some really great staff that have been added to the library since we have done the market and research and out there. So I guess my ask at this point is kind of looking with the board, if the board wants a role right now, or do we want to come back and present back to the board, or?
But I think that, so we're talking to two issues. One is there going to be a representative from the board who's going to be the point person? And then the second one is the thing about the consultant. And so we should figure out next steps on both of those. And maybe the consultant part is to frame out what exactly you need and what you want and see, but it's up to
Does anyone prefer to be the point person? Is anyone interested particularly in being?
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay,
Sure.
Great. Anybody else? That'd be.
No, Bob, you're it.
Mhm.
And I say that only because tucked away in the dusty files at home are hopefully still things that came out of the board meetings when this sort of thing was discussed in the past. And Marcia probably has some of that too, but anyhow, you know, I may or may not. I'm not promising, but I would be happy to do that. Sort of like be a fly on the wall that gets to talk every now and then, is the extent of the commitment as I see it. Right, not to run meetings, not to make judgments, but just to, you know, if somebody has a question, hey, what do you think about the board, then, you know, I'd be able to
Be a
respond.
Conduit of
Yeah,
information back and forth.
Yeah.
sure.
been there,
Mr. Interface.
Yes.
And so you could report on this big plan perhaps to us. Brian saying, well, this
I think it'd be
Sure.
joint. We can continue, we could collaborate on that.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think-
we'd meet together. And do you have an overall sense of when the final strategic plan document, by when do you want to have that? You know, I'm gonna say on paper, but it'll probably be in the computer. So, you know, finished, I guess.
Finished. I don't know. I mean,
Next year?
yeah, I mean, I'm not pushing for, you know, end of calendar. I think early 2025. I am not in a rush because I think it's good to just start thinking of get people back together.
Kind of a
have a-
voluntary thing we're gonna do, and when we feel it's been done and done well, we'll produce it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, I mean, Tim, any Francesca, any additional thoughts?
So, should I wait for you, Brian, to inform me when you're thinking about having the next thing that, as the board liaison, I should attend?
Yes, yeah, because what I'll do is we'll go in and I think at this point, what we want to do is we'll bring in and before doing, as I've mentioned, you know, regarding kind of consultant, whatever it is about like going through with the staff, we'll bring over, kind of get another, because we'll get another call to staff, like who's interested in contributing. We've been done the first step of getting a lot of information gathering out there. Let's look at these next steps and then we'll bring those forward and invite you out and then kind of go from there about what the next calendar session is going to be. And then we can provide updates to the trustees at future meetings.
Well, I think, I mean, I don't know if I speak for anybody else sitting here, but it would be very interesting to have a sense of what staff are thinking and saying, you know, without interfering with any privacy that they may want. And I think it would give the board a better feel for how all portions of the library, you know, volunteers, board, different staff at different levels, you know, just, it would give us a better sense, I think, a feel for. Because as you have well done and said that this is kind of like a massive group affair, coming up with a strategic plan. It's not something that you want to simply come down from the top of the totem pole to the bottom, but it's something that we want to feel like we're all part of.
everybody okay with the way it's standing?
I'm thinking that it's wonderful that Bob and Marcia have been here a long time. They're fully clued in. But the rest of us are new here and we need to join in on these things too, so we can learn from it. So I think it's important to have one of us newbies. So I'd like to go in that.
I think there's also,
I think you really only should have one person because otherwise it's sort of overpowering to the staff. There aren't very many people on the staff. I think
How are we ever going to learn?
we have a liaison who's gonna do that.
Apparently, you'll get to hear me report at our meetings.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I disagree that it'll be overpowering, but if that's how everybody feels, then
We can.
I don't think so.
What?
It's fluid enough. We could see what transpires and what everybody feels is necessary.
And then the other piece is the consultant. So maybe at the next meeting, you can bring back, maybe you and Bob could actually talk about it and a more coherent, a sense of what it is that you actually need as a facilitator. And see what the community foundation has to offer, and somebody who will offer their services at a very reasonable price, or maybe even a volunteer, who knows?
Mhm.
I imagine that would have to do with the timeline of all of this too. They
Yeah.
would, whoever it is, they'd need to know what they're being asked to do. Is it a session? Is it 5 sessions?
Are there any public comments about this issue? No. All right. Thank you, everyone. Now it's time for trustee comments. Harish?
I'm delighted that the library is open on Mondays. That's that's good news.
Yeah, I agree. And it, the more the more we can offer, the more frequently we can offer stuff, the more justification we'll have for asking for more support. And so I agree with what Harish said from that point of view. And, all that could be incorporated into a strategic plan in some way too. Looking forward, which is what strategic plans are all about, I believe.
Well, I had a little bit of news from the Friends and Foundation I would like to share here. We have 5 new board members that are
great.
being onboarded right now. And so new committees are forming for the new fiscal year. There's a Books and Cooks event with local author Caroline Chambers, which is almost sold out. It's in November. And her book is number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list as of today. So
Oh, wow.
she's a big deal. And Chocolate and Wine is already scheduled for February 22nd.
Mhm.
And that's, we're working on that. Our little advocacy group is working on advocacy. We were quite a little bit disappointed by the NCIP results, where several of the neighborhoods scored the library's needs at 0 or 1 out of 10. And we're working on a plan to rectify that. One of the things we might ask of the board is to start contacting your NCIP representatives and going to your neighborhood meetings to present the library's case, so that the next time these things come up, there'll be a little more empathy with the library's needs. It seems like we need a little bit of PR to go to the neighborhoods to make that case. So that's another one of our efforts and our little.
You know who the staff person is that chairs? When I was on that, it was NIP, not NCIP. But when I was the representative of my neighborhood on that years ago, there was, I believe, a staff person who chaired it.
The staff person this year is actually from our neighborhood, who was an NCIP rep, and it's not staff.
But it's a staff person.
No,
Oh,
it's one of the
Chair.
NCIP people.
oh, one of the NCA. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
and we've started already having little conversations, but I think that it's a kind of a long-term thing because NCIP only is once a year.
Yeah,
So it's done for this year, it's over, but this is a longer term thing, but it's another strategic direction to go into. You know, city council is one, NCIP is one. We just need to get all the advocacy we can get. So advocacy continues, that's all.
Yeah, if I can add on to that, NCIP has apparently changed fairly drastically recently because instead of the representatives coming from the neighborhoods themselves, recommended by the neighborhood association or whatever, now the mayor and city council are the ones who decide who's going to be on the board.
oh,
I mean,
really?
the NCIP. And so it may or may not even be someone from the neighborhood. We don't know
Well, I
this.
think it has to be from the neighborhood, but
Oh.
it may be somebody who's never gone to a neighborhood meeting and knows nobody. And this was not done by the current mayor. This was done by Clyde Roberson about 2-3 years ago. He just sort of summarily decided, I mean, the city council decided that they were going to appoint the members. And this year there was a big issue because a couple of the people who had been on there for 20 years were just turned out and new people brought in.
Yeah.
And the neighborhoods were not consulted. So there's a bit of turmoil there. But anyway, the neighborhoods seem to be turning away from funding city projects. You know, as you said, they funded Eddie's Eats with a huge amount. They funded the sports center. They funded all these public projects. And now they're starting to say, let the city do it. We'll fund our own streets, you know, we'll fund our own neighborhoods. And so there needs to be some advocacy to make the library's case, I think, for these NCIP reps and at NCIP meetings.
Because the library is considered to be in the downtown neighborhood along with, you know, other facilities that are part, yes, they're in the neighborhood, but it's not like the residential neighborhoods. And so all the other neighborhood or most of the other neighborhood associations think about what's good for their proximity and not necessarily wanting to fund something that's in the general wealth. So, but if anyone is interested, I am going to go to this. It's a candidates forum, basically. So there's 3 white men on this picture, but it's happening, let's see, next week, Tuesday, I believe, the 27th, and all the candidates for city council and mayor will be there. And it's an opportunity to question them about some things, including how do they support the library or how do they support thus and such.
Where was that published? Did you copy?
It was sent out to me by my neighborhood association. There is a small blurb in today's weekly
Today's, okay.
about it. But you have to go online and to find out the location, which is at Bayview School on Casa Verde. And it's not my neighborhood that's funding it, but that's sponsoring it. It's the Del Monte Beach neighborhood. Are any of you living in Del Monte Beach?
I also think it's on Zoom, right?
Is it on Zoom? Oh, yes,
think
it's a
it's
hybrid. It
also
can
on
be
Zoom.
on Zoom or in person. And they also want you to submit your questions beforehand. So it's not just a public forum where anybody can ask a question. It's more of a guided
What
thing.
day and time did you say it was?
Yeah, I can send you this.
Okay.
It is.
It's
or you
Tuesday, the
can have-
27th at
Tuesday,
6
the
p.m.
27th. You can have that. There's a QR code, which I had trouble getting to come up, but
And the candidates are the mayor and city council people.
yes, yes.
And they have a list here, but they don't say who's running for what.
Well, yeah, yes. Anyway,
Two districts and mayor.
yeah. So it's not all the districts.
No.
There, right?
It's not ours, Bob.
I'm not in yours, am I?
Are you in Old Town?
Yeah, but Old Town isn't, all of Old Town, I don't think is linked with New Monterey, is it?
Some of it is.
But anyway, who is sponsoring this is Del Monte Beach Association, which was one of the ones who rated the library projects very lowly. And so this is maybe a good opportunity to talk to them as well. If I'm going in person, maybe I can.
Janie, you referred to a different way of selecting the NCIP representatives. I thought, and I could be totally wrong, that the nominees to be the rep from neighborhood X came out of the neighborhood association or something. And then when there was more than one, it went through that mayor interviews and appoints process.
That's the way it always was until 2 years ago. And now it isn't anymore.
And-
They applied directly to city council
Oh, okay, well,
and then bypassing the neighborhood.
yeah, but I mean, like, let's just say,
If there's only one applicant, if only one person applies, I would assume that they would.
done deal, yeah. But if there were two applicants,
Then they.
just as if we had an opening here and there were two applicants for a seat here, then the mayor would have to, make a
I
choice.
don't know where that's written, but that's the way it's working now.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
But it still could come out of the neighborhood association if the neighborhood association was active enough. They might get together and say, hey, Sally, why don't you apply?
Right, they could say, Sally, why don't you apply? But Joe, who never went to a neighborhood meeting and knows no one in the neighborhood,
Could also,
could also apply. And bump.
but the spots on the
Neighborhood doesn't-
NCIP group are
Just
one per neighborhood.
Right,
And an alternate.
And I-
Yeah, right.
And I would say not to get on too much of a conversation of this because it's not agendized, but I will say also there are some recent council meetings, especially the one where there was the appointing, and those are on YouTube as well. And I did sit and listen and watch that. There's a lot of different discussions and public comment. So if we want more kind of public comment, but as Trustee Moreau was saying, because it's not done, the interviews are done the same way the trustees where you were interviewed by the mayor, and that was decided at a prior leadership and in council that had made that decision. And it's just that is the way the process goes now. And I think they go into why and how during one of those council meetings. So I would just say, watch that council meeting and look at that agenda report and you can get more information.
I apologize for opening a can of worms. All I meant to say is that we're doing advocacy. And we should all.
We are continuing. And that's one of the ways. Thank you all. Library director comments, please.
I will just mention that our local history librarian position is active for applications. So if you know anybody that is a local history librarian or specialist and that wants to apply for that role, that was Andre's job that he took in the promotion down south. But we're looking for quality candidates and want to appreciate Monterey history and would love to work with us. So we look forward to filling that position soon.
I think I asked you this before and I forgot what you said. I'm sorry. Is that need to be a librarian, an MLS, or is it can an archivist apply, for example?
Great question, because I think first round, I mean, the application is going to be reviewed by human resources generally before for what they call minimum qualifications, and then it'll go through. I would have to look at that spec. I think it says it or equivalent, but I'm not 100% sure. So I wouldn't be the one. I would say to do that, but usually what they do is they do a ranking, because then there are supplemental questions as well. Do you have this? What's your experience? And some of those other things are also percentage and points. So go look at their qualifications, not only by minimum qualifications, but also supplemental questions on supplemental questionnaire for the application. And call human resources for any direct questions on that, because I hate providing any incorrect information that's a human resources related question.
I did just look, and it does say that an equivalent combination of education and experience may be considered.
That's what I thought,
Is it-
but I wasn't,
Okay.
typically they score specific things. So I would just say,
Okay.
have them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And other than that, yeah, I'm happy to be open on Mondays. And I know they already left the room, but thank you to Bianca and Andrea for presenting about summer reading this year. And I think it was a very positive program, very fun. And I look forward to next year and look forward to continuing it.
Anyone else? Is there anything else to discuss? Kim, do you have anything? Do I have to call for a motion to adjourn? No, I can just adjourn. Whoa, what power. The meeting is adjourned now. Thank you.